6 years ago, I was here. I was living in this hut in the jungle on the side of an active volcano with no cell phone signal on a black sand coast on the southeast edge of the big island of Hawaii. About 6 months prior, I had resigned from a job that I loved. Even though I loved the work I was doing and I was close to a bunch of my coworkers, the organization's leadership had created a toxic work environment and my health was suffering badly as a result. I was burnt out to a crisp. So even though it broke my heart to walk away, I knew I needed to. And I walked far, far away. I did something that I never thought I could do, called a sabbatical. It was a chance to heal and reinvent my life. And when I invited in this new beginning, everything changed. This was more than a retreat center. It was also an intentional community that had over 100 full-time residents who lived there and worked 20 hours a week pitching in to help run the center. And a lot of people there were like me in times of transition. After they had had breakups or divorces or jobs ending, they hit the big reset button on life. And we all saved up our money and flew to the middle of the Pacific to start over together in this place where the land was cracking open and forming right under our feet. I was only going to stay there for 3 months, originally, but the center invited me to stay longer and to take on more responsibilities in running the community. And when I got that invitation, I said yes. This is a little bit of what we looked like. There were a handful of people that had been there for actually years, but 90% of folks were only there for a couple of months. And because there was this constantly shifting population with people revolving in and out like a handful here and a handful there every single week, it led to this type of conversation that I called tropical small talk. It sounds like, so how was your flight? Gosh, the weather is so beautiful. Did you get a fresh coconut yet? Where's the best snorkeling? It was a rugged but ridiculously magical place where for a long time my biggest complaint was that when I was trying to take a nap in the hammock, flowers kept falling on my face from the tree above me. But I settled in, and after a while, being human, little pet peeves started to come up. I'd be sitting at this lunch table. I remember one day, it was just like overrun with tropical small talk. And I had had enough. I did not want to talk about the coconuts or the weather anymore. So I started scheming. Starting with the people that I usually had interesting conversations with, I started inviting people to come to the community's first lightning talk event. Some people said, no way. They were way too nervous to speak in front of a group. But enough people said yes that we could do it. At the event, people would have 5 minutes to stand up and talk about anything that they were knowledgeable about, passionate about, or interested in. That first night, about 15 people spoke. One guy told a story about what it was like to be a bone marrow donor and why he believed everyone should sign up to do it. Another woman described a beautiful experience that she had volunteering with incarcerated women. One person who was a doctor, she told us about all the medical and psychological benefits of hugging. And there was also a cheese fanatic who told everybody about the history of cheese. That one was me. It was a great night. We had a really wonderful time, and it actually turned into a monthly event. And more importantly for me, it gave us a lot of other things to talk about. And I was inspired by that, so I decided to try something else. One of the things that I had noticed is that it was really hard to make one-on-one connections because almost all of our activities happened in big groups. So whether it was cleaning up the grounds, working in the gardens, yoga, dance, meditation, going on adventure outings, and definitely the community meals where there were 8 chairs around every single table. I would be telling a friend something kind of personal over dinner, and boom, 6 other people would just sit down. Whatever one-on-one private conversation we were having got pushed aside to make way for a group conversation. And that's really friendly and all, and that's important, but it also drove me crazy because it needed to be okay for a couple of people to just say, like, we're hanging out one-on-one right now. So I got an idea. And I knew that it would be worth trying because other people had told me this frustrated them too. So I made a bunch of really pretty, like, little paper invitations that you could use to ask somebody out on a one-on-one friend date. And I secretly left a stack of them by the mailboxes to see what would happen. It worked. People started asking each other out on one-on-one friend dates. And instead of it being unusual or taboo to spend time one-on-one, it became a special occasion. Some people found their best friends that way, and these crushing couples, they could hang out one-on-one without standing out so much from the rest of the group. And those heart-to-heart conversations, they finally had space to unfold in an unrushed way. After a while, I got addicted to these invitations, and I would just try other experiments and throw something out there whenever I noticed something was missing in the community. And after I left, the community manager said that this invitational attitude, spirit, adventure thing had just kind of trickled throughout the community, and a lot of other people kept it going even after I was gone. And I was really moved by that because all it took to start was a couple of off-the-wall ideas and being brave enough to ask people to do them with me. This is the power of an invitation. A lot of times in life, we wish that something was different in our life or in our community, but we don't claim our power to make it happen. We hold ourselves back because we're afraid of rejection, and we're afraid of feeling sad if people say no. And yeah, I've learned, sometimes people are gonna say no, but it's not personal. Sometimes people are gonna say yes, and the more times you ask, the more yeses you get. And the more yeses you get, the more magic can happen. Whether you want better friendships, a more engaged community, a greater sense of play, or full-on social change, I challenge you to embrace your power to make that happen. This is the core of what an invitation is. Every invitation, whether it starts out with a simple action or a few words, they all have an energy around them. And inside that energy, there's a seed. And at the center of that seed is possibility. And when we take hold of that possibility, we can make anything happen. Believe it or not, I got tired of living on an island and staring at the Pacific Ocean. I wanted the vitality and vibrancy of life in a city again. So, a year later, I packed my bags and went to another place where I didn't know anybody, the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I got here, I just dove headfirst into everything that the Bay Area had to offer. So whenever I wasn't working, I was out nights and weekends at like art events and exhibits and music shows and potlucks and meetups, and there was just so many things to do, and I wanted to do all of it. And I met lots of really cool people. I was making acquaintances all the time, but it was actually kind of difficult to turn my acquaintances into deep, regular friendships. Thought that was kind of strange. And another thing I noticed was kind of strange is that I started to feel like Bill Murray in that movie Groundhog Day, where instead of having tropical small talk every single day, now I was having Bay Area, San Francisco small talk every single day. And it sounded like, where are you from? What do you do? Where are you from? What do you do? Where are you from? What do you do? And I got really tired of that conversation too. And just as before, I wondered if other people felt the same way. So I made a one-page website where I invited people to come to an event called Better Than Small Talk. And that's what it was. I wrote down a bunch of conversation starter questions, and I hung them up all over the room. They said things like, what was a time in the last year when you felt the most alive? Or what's a big life lesson that you've learned, and how did you learn it? Or how are you similar or different from who you were as a 16-year-old? Most of the people who came to the event were strangers, but a couple hours after this juicy, substantial conversation, they were saying that they were having better conversations than they normally had with people in their everyday lives. And I kept hearing something else a lot too. Hundreds of the people who RSVP'd for this event said they were having trouble making friends. And that really confused me because these were perfectly lovely people. It didn't make sense that they should struggle with friendship. I'm a user experience designer and researcher, and I decided to treat this just like I would any other usability problem to figure out how could we solve this. I spent the next couple of years, just really digging into the research, I spoke to people from coast to coast, all different ages and genders and ethnicities and industries and backgrounds and walks of life, and I found out that people everywhere were struggling with friendship. Not only that, our country was facing a loneliness epidemic that left half of the population feeling lonely on a regular basis. And I also looked at the research about belonging and connection and what are the things that we can do that help to foster that the most. Much to my surprise, I ended up writing a book about it because I wanted to give people this information so they could form better friendships and to know that they were not alone. Nowadays, I get messages from people all over the world who say that they're using these tools and it's helping them have more meaningful connection in their lives. You know, one person wrote me and said that he's forming a new friendship with somebody that he used to play Little League with 25 years ago. Someone else said that she has reconnected with her 88-year-old grandfather, her childhood friends, a former mentor, and her partner's mom, all through the act of writing letters. I never really knew that I was going to write a book, but the inspiration to write that book came out of the conversations I was having. And those conversations came from making a simple invitation. I have one more for you. I'd been in the Bay Area about a year and a half, and like I said, I was going to a lot of events and meetups, and a lot of these were about my line of work, which is design. And I noticed that there were not a lot of people who looked like me in the room. I'd been out of school for over a decade, and I'd only ever met one other Black female designer. And in fact, I could count the total number of Black designers that I knew on one hand. I felt lonely and alienated in my profession, where Black people are not only underrepresented, we're constantly underestimated. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. So I called up one of the Black designers I knew, and I said, hey, will you meet me for coffee? And we met up in the back of this tiny hole-in-the-wall donut shop, and I said, do you know any other Black designers? And he said, yeah, I know a few. And I said, you know, I only know a couple, but I really want to know more, so would you introduce me? He said, sure, of course. And we got an email thread together, and I just invited everybody to come to my apartment. It was a beautiful, sunny Saturday afternoon that first time we met, and it was about a half a dozen people came over. I didn't even have enough chairs for everybody. Some people had to sit on the floor. But there was a buzz in the room because this was a rare experience for all of us, to be in a room with that many other Black designers who knew about the challenges that we faced and the bias in our workplaces and in the industry, but who also can understand the backgrounds that we came from and the things that inspired us and why we brought ourselves to this work in this particular way. And I said, wow, I really want to see you all again. We should get together. We should do this more often. And I decided that we would be called Bay Area Black Designers. And we became a group. And I kept inviting people. Every month, I would send an invitation to get together for supportive community, peer mentoring, and professional development. And word of mouth spread. Eventually, we had to graduate from an email list to a meetup page, and from my living room to some office spaces that could host us in a bigger group. And now, 5 years later, there's 500 of us. Yeah. It's incredible because it showed us and our industry that we weren't alone, and we had community, and we had a safe place to get support when we were navigating professional changes. You know, one of our members had a career in PR, and she was navigating into product design. And during her time in our circle, she became a product designer at Netflix. Others, they moved from being designers to managers or creative directors, and two of the members in the group met, fell in love, and got engaged. I never imagined on that first day that any of that was going to happen, nor did I think that one day Forbes was going to call me up and be like, hey, will you give us your playbook so that other people in the country can use your same model? I was like, yeah, totally. But I was blown away because the honest truth of it is that it all just came from making a simple invitation and being consistent with it. You might be hearing these stories and looking at me thinking like, whoa, She seems like super extroverted. Good for her, she's doing all these social things. Whoa. But that's actually not true. I am a total introvert. And I don't have that much energy. I would describe my energy level as a cross between a pillow and a house cat. It's pretty mellow. Extroverts are different. You know, as an introvert, I lose energy from social interactions. Extroverts, they gain energy from social interactions and being around lots of people, making lots of chit-chat. But because it drains me, I want all of my interactions to be really, really good ones, super nutritious. And I think being an introvert helps me bring that intention to the invitations that I offer. I also believe that anyone can do this. Hopefully, you're sitting there and you're hopefully amped up about invitations like I am now, and maybe you're wondering, you know, what kind of invitations should I do? I want you to hold that thought in your hand like a little seed, and I want you to imagine what you want to grow. For me, I wanted to grow connection, authenticity, and imagination. And I know that plants don't just grow perfectly by themselves. You have to water them and fertilize them. And what I needed to give my plant was courage, vulnerability, and hope. So think about what you want to grow and what you need to give to make that happen. Most people are just waiting to be invited. I want you to go beyond that and make bold, brave invitations too. Think about who you want to invite, who you love talking to, who you wish you knew, what kind of things you want to share, and what invitations will pull them closer to you. And the question I want you to walk away from tonight with is, if you could only express your hopes, your dreams, and your values in the form of invitations, what kind of invitations would you offer this world? Thank you.